prices to the moon. The beers them waiting for the crash coming real soon. But the OG consultant watching, he's seen it all before. Over 40 years in the game, he knows the real score. Bull versus bear, a real estate fight. Peter Zalewski tell you who's wrong and who is right. In the Miami Condo investing club with no guess. He cuts through the noise and all of the mess. The Peter Zalewski Show. Big respect, OG in the game. Listen and learn the man's name. And up down. Peter Zalewski Show.
Happy Wednesday, Miami. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm an expert witness, and I'm the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. If you're watching us live, that means it's 4 o'clock on Wednesday, 4 o'clock South Florida time. What are we going to be doing today? I have the opportunity to sit down with a business leader, somebody who runs a property management company. He's going to walk us through. He's going to help us understand what's exactly in play right now as we come up into 2026. Why is 2026 important? Because all these condo associations in the state of Florida, now they got to start securing some sort of way to pay for all the work that's been identified through structural integrity reserve studies and or milestone inspections. And what does that mean? It probably means your maintenance fee is going up. It probably means that you have a special assessment. And what Jose is going to tell us, Jose Pazos from A Smart Cam, that is my guest this week. He's been in the business for north of 20 years. He's going to tell us about some of the votes happening and some of the potential fisticuffs. People are getting pissed off as to what's going on, what the fees are going to be, and they don't like it, and they're pushing back on the board of directors. And guess who's got to show up at the meetings and kind of manage it all? No one else but Jose. So that's a long way of saying, Jose Pazos, welcome to the Peter Zalewski Show. You have a company that's called A Smart Cam, and your website is asmartcam.com. Welcome, Jose.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here. I saved a cigar just for this afternoon's conversation, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. It's going to be a great show.
You know, Jose, I don't know where people are watching this at because of the beauty of the internet. So they could be up north, they could be abroad, they could be anywhere. One of the things they're going to notice, though, if they are up north and it's snowing up there, they're looking back and you're sitting in your backyard, you got smoking a cigar, you got the nice little setting, nice and relaxed. Isn't it great to live in South Florida?
It is a beautiful Miami day, gorgeous, not humid at all. I empathize with all my neighbors up north that are up there in the cold, but it is a beautiful, beautiful banner day here in Miami, Florida.
Now, what's not beautiful is what's going on with the condo associations, especially the fees
Yes.
and the special assessments and all of that. So I want to get to all that, but before we get into the podcast, let me sort of lay out the rules of engagement. I'll tell people what the structure is going to be, and basically I got you for an hour. So I'm going to try to get as much information out of you as possible. And Jose, you know what I love about you? You've been around so long that you're not going to hold back. You're going to give us straight talk. You're not going to do the cha-cha-cha like we hear from some of the corporate media relations people. So you're going to be able to tell us what's really going on in the condo association world right now as we come into 2026 and everybody's starting to get their maintenance fees, their special assessment bills, and everything else involved with that. So this is going to be a fun podcast. If anybody is watching this, you're watching it live. If you're going to want to watch it on demand, you're going to have to join the Miami Condo Investing Club. The website is miamicondo.com. We collect information. We share the information. It's real time. We're bringing you sources. We're bringing you experts. We're giving you the real take on it. We're moving it away from the Convention and Visitor Bureau or industry type of rosy spin. And we want to give you the information so you can go out there and do whatever it is you want to do. And if you are a condo board member, you might want to consider, after this conversation, reaching out to Jose. Who knows? Maybe he can undercut everybody else around there. How can he do that? Why would he do that? He's one of the early adopters of technology. He's brought in technology. He's been able to eliminate a lot of the fat, eliminate a lot of the bureaucracy, and basically equip a condo association to be able to run very efficiently. We're in an era right now of Doge. It's all about eliminating waste, and that's effectively what Jose saw coming when he went forward on his own once his partner retired, and he set up A Smart Cam. Prior to that, he was working with a former state legislator who was pushing forward condo association laws, rules, because his partner and him, they both saw what was coming down the pike. Why? Because they live it. They're in the trenches. They understand it. They're not parachuting in from afar. And that's why this conversation is going to be absolutely excellent. Jose, what'd I get wrong?
You are on the money, my friend, as usual. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I just had a condo meeting, a budget meeting last night. And we were texting about this podcast, and it was one for the books. It was the exactly what you and I had predicted in 2022 when Daniel Perez introduced this legislation of the reserve funding and the legislature passed it. The bloodbath for 2025. It originally was going to be 2024. They kicked the can down the road in 2025. So this is the year of the bloodbath, and we are in the middle of budget season. Just last night, we had a physical altercation that almost.
Whoa, hold on. Oh, no.
Yes.
This is like live TV. We gotta string them along. We want everybody to wait until after the commercial break. There's no commercial breaks, but we want them to hang out a lot. So you have just teased them. You gave them a little bit as to what's going on, and people maybe get a little bit physical. So I want them to stick around for that. But before we do that, Jose, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's talk a little bit about your background, why you care about condos, how you got into condos, what purpose you're trying to serve with asmartcam.com. And then we'll sort of morph along. We'll get into the fisticuffs. And also, too, I'm going to be...
Sorry, on my phone.
That's not a problem. I'm going to be asking you about what your forecast is for 2026, because you correctly called everything that was playing out right now. And I want to get your insight as to where we kind of go from here. So that's kind of the big picture. So Jose, tell me a little bit about your connection to Miami, how you understand it, how you went to school with some of the players, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to. So my name is Jose Pazos. I was born and raised in Miami-Dade County, 1975. I was actually born on November 5th, election day. I was born and raised. I went to LaSalle High School, Macalata LaSalle High School. A year young, I was class of 1995. Class of 96 below me was actually Francis Suarez, our current City of Miami mayor. And I worked at City Hall during my sophomore, junior, senior year at LaSalle High School for Vice Mayor Victor DeUris. So back in the day when Steve Clark was the mayor at the city, and J.O. Plummer, Miller Dawkins, all those guys. Caesar.
So it looks like Jose's having a little issue here. He'll be back momentarily. Let me kind of fill in some of the blanks as to what Jose was kind of talking about. He was talking about Stephen Clark. Stephen Clark was the mayor of Miami. This guy was prototypical 1950s Mad Men. If you guys ever saw that TV series, that was a series where you had all these advertising executives. They used to drink in the office. They could smoke cigarettes, stuff like that. When I first got to Miami, Steve Clark was the mayor at the time. He wore the black glasses. I think he smoked cigarette. He definitely liked the booze. He definitely was drinking. It was a liquor type of lunch. That was his reputation. That's what I heard about when I first got here. And it was, it was a different time. That was back in the day, and he mentioned J.L. Plummer. J.L. Plummer was a city commissioner, and his family was ultimately in they were in the funeral home business. J.L. Plummer, while he was a commissioner, he drove around in a Cadillac, and his license tag was Plummer. It would say Plummer on there. He'd driving around, checking stuff out, doing stuff like that. So that was the old school, what they called Miami. Sometimes you still run into some people who still say Miami. Now everybody calls it Miami, and some people call it Miami, but they call it, Miami. So it depends, but it all sort of shows the evolution that's occurred in Miami over the years. So basically, Jose's a unicorn. You don't have a lot of people born and raised in Miami. It tends to be a little bit unique. So to speak to somebody who's actually been in the ground and raised, Jose says he's coming, so he's going to be right back. So it's kind of unique to find people who were, born and raised in Miami, so they can kind of walk you through the entire process. He was here in the 1970s. Miami was a much different place in the 1970s, and it sort of evolved, and it continues to evolve. And what we saw primarily recently, that being the pandemic years of 2021, people didn't have to wear masks, and they could come down here, work from home. They could work for a company out of New York, maybe on Wall Street. They could work on a company out of Silicon Valley. They could come down here. They didn't have to pay state income tax. They had high wages because of where they were coming from. They moved to Florida. They bought these condos, and everything was just brilliant. They were queuing up, and sales went through the roof, and we kind of took off like you cannot believe. Well, what sort of happened since then is we've seen these companies call people back to the office. They're requiring them to go back to Silicon Valley if they're in the technology business. Why? Because they want to work on AI. And Wall Street wanted people back in the office. Why? Because they wanted the synergy. whether you're an investment banking company or anything else, it's all about that close contact. It's all about sort of that relationship. And that's how it sort of evolved. So where are we standing right now? We're looking at a situation where you got too many units on the market. You don't have enough buyers, and interest rates are going to be high. And this is where Jose's part comes in. The property management part comes in. The reason property management is so critical is because the Surfside condo collapse. Remember when back in June of 2021, when Surfside went down, when the tower went down, nearly 100 people died. It was like 1 a.m. All of a sudden, the tower collapses. People are sleeping in their beds and stuff, and they ultimately get killed. So a tragedy, an outright tragedy. And what followed that was a federal investigation to take a look at what was happening, why it happened, and the studies associated with that. Ultimately, $1 billion was paid out to the families of the victims. And after that, the insurance company said, listen, if you want us to go ahead and continue to insure these buildings, we got to know what we're insuring. And that led to a bunch of legislation that I would argue was pushed down by the insurance industry. And it's leading to regular inspections now. Inspections were required in the past, but the primary inspection, especially in Miami-Dade County, was a 40-year inspection. It was a 40-year recertification. It's the one everybody kind of knows about. They do it in Broward as well. But the 40-year inspection, it came about because an office tower collapsed. It was the federal government was leasing an office tower. It collapsed. Guess how old that building was when it collapsed? It was 40 years. So therefore, the county leaders at the time, this is in the 1970s, they made a decision that said, hey, listen, if you have a building in South Florida, well, in Miami-Dade County, you're going to need to inspect it coming up on your 40 years because we don't want to repeat. So everything had been under control. They were doing a 40 years recertification in Miami-Dade County. And what ultimately came of that? Well, Surfside. Surfside comes of it. The industry reacts dramatically. They put in place all this legislation. Now you got these inspections. You got 2 inspections. One is called a structural integrity reserve study. It's done every 10 years. So keep in mind, if you're looking at any kind of going forward, every 10 years based on when it was last done and or the certificate of occupancy when people can move in, you're going to be doing an inspection. So a takeaway of that is you're getting a special. Hey, Jose.
I'm back. I'm so sorry about that, Peter. My outside studio completely took a turn for the worse, but hopefully I didn't ruin the show.
No, not at all. I was just filling people in as to why you're playing such a critical role right now and what the property management company and condo association managers have to do it right now because of everything leading up to Surfside. So let me just finish up that part about the Surfside, and then we'll get over to sort of what you're kind of seeing. So after the tower goes down and all these people die and the insurance money is paid out, the insurance industry wants to understand what's going to happen. So I would argue they work the legislature. Legislature adopts all kind of rules. Some of these rules are all meant towards backstopping the insurance company at basically at the cost of condo owners. So condo living has gone up. Now it's been sort of pushed back a little bit, but basically every condo association is going to need to have an inspection. And if you're a buyer going in, you want to look for a building where you're going to get an inspection and you're going to have a signature. Why? Because that's going to give you a roadmap, what the future is for that building. Remember, every 10 years, structural integrity reserve study. At year 30, you got something called a milestone inspection. That's kind of the bigger study. But, I'll ask Jose, what does it cost on some of these special assessments, what he's seeing. We're seeing our numbers and we're speculating, but I'm not sure that the real numbers are out yet. Why? Because inspections are still getting done. They were supposed to be done at the end of last year. Some associations chose not to do it. Other associations simply couldn't get the personnel because you need a licensed architect, a licensed engineer in order to get it done. So that's kind of a big picture, but the rubber meets the road right now. Condo fees are up. Condo living is up. Resales are up. Listings. Why? Because people can't afford it. They're looking to get out. And other people are saying it's too expensive to live in Florida and we got to worry about the hurricanes. What happened a couple of years back. So, Jose, I've set the scene as to kind of where we are. But I want to hear more about your company and more about you, and then we'll circle back to that, and you can give us kind of a pulse of what's going on right now. Here we are in December of 2025.
Of course, and thank you, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties we had outside, but where I was leaving at is when I was young, I was at Immaculata LaSalle. I worked at City Hall for my high school years, and I got to see a lot of the big movers and shakers, developers, and how that whole process works. I joined the Marine Corps in 1999. I'm a combat veteran, so I went to Afghanistan. My unit was the first in Afghanistan after 9/11. We were aboard the USS Peloton. We were actually in Australia when 9/11 happened. So we were the first geographical unit closest to Afghanistan. We were the first to respond. It was the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable, under General Mattis in Task Force 58. Then I went to Iraq, did another combat tour there. came back, became the battalion legal chief for a while as a sergeant. And then I transitioned into the civilian world, where I was in real estate for a little bit in 2003, 4, 5.
The run-up.
Yeah.
The great South Florida condo boom and bust of 2002 to 2011.
Yes, sir. And I opened the management firm in 2005 because I didn't like living as a realtor. I don't like the uncertainty of a commission check. And that just, to me, seemed unsustainable at the time. I knew we were in the middle of a boom, and I made some money on it like everyone else, but I saw what was coming. So I wanted something more steady and something with rules. I actually started by managing apartment buildings in Overtown, Liberty City, Coconut Grove, in the bad areas, that they're not so bad now, but they were bad before. I remember going in there to collect rent with a gun, and it was cash. And it was cash back in those days. Fro Avenue and Little Haiti, when the Zopound gang was there, I would go collect cash rent, and I would tow vehicles left and right. So here's this cocky combat veteran Marine, 28 years old, 29 years old. Who does he think he is? And I'm towing cars, and I'm telling people off, and I'm collecting rent. And then I was like, this is the Wild Wild West. So I was like, I found condo management because I had some clients that wanted me to do it. And I had to get licensed, and I had to go through the whole rigmarole. And I said, well, there's rules here. For a Marine with ADHD, I love it. So I love the rules. Tell me the rules, and I'll beat you at the game. So there's rules, there's statutes. I learned them. And once I learned something, that's it. It's over. And I got into condo management. That's all she wrote. I saw a lot of injustice. All right. I'm a young guy. At the time, I was a young business owner, 29 years old, owning a management firm, 30, 31. I got married, had my first child, and I would see, the old folks that were struggling to pay. And I would see the boards kicking the can down the road. And really, and this part is the best part, I saw the legislature not do absolutely anything for condo owners, managers, enforcement of any laws, anything. And then I found out through working, I met my future business partner, which is now my former business partner. We were together for a number of years. And it was a former state representative, Louis Robina, who was advocating for these consumer protection and these advanced condo laws, many of them that we have today, but in a different form that was correct, and not this thing that they jammed down our throat. And that I saw a lot of injustice with. $11 million. All right. This is back in 2008 when I first ran from the Florida House in 2010. I remember these numbers. $11 million a year was allocated in the budget every year for the DVPR for two purposes, education and enforcement. They did none of those two things. The $11 million was consistently swept into the general fund in order to balance the general budget. That happened all the way up through Surfside. And it took Surfside to change it. But they ignored Julio Robina and all those folks when they were trying to do it. They ignored me when I was running for office, when I was up there advocating for, the estoppel certificate laws, to be corrected as they were, thank God, and application fees and all these other nuances that were for the benefit of the owners. And they have no idea. So what happens in Tallahassee is that if there's not a tragedy like this, or there's not a lobbying group that's really pushing an issue, it's not going to get done. It's not going to get done. It's a complete show. It is, I always say, politics is nothing but Hollywood for ugly people. That's it.
Because the good-looking people they're in Hollywood. Yeah, but now
more than that.
But now they can get on a podcast.
That's
right?
correct.
You don't have to go to Hollywood anymore.
Well, now we have Hollywood politicians.
Exactly. Jose, you made a reference early on before the little disruption. You mentioned Daniel Perez. Daniel Perez is the Speaker of the House, right? The Florida House.
He is.
And I think he's out of Hialeah or something, no?
He's actually out of Westchester, not too far from where I live. Which
Okay.
doesn't have that many condos in it, actually.
Yeah. But he was the one who really kind of came forward with the legislation. He's the one that when Florida Governor Ron DeSantis called a special session this year to deal with the condo issue, he opened it and then he closed it immediately in order to comply with the governor's request or order, I guess constitutionally. I'm not a constitutional expert. Check with one of them. But then he turned around and opened up another one, and he dealt primarily with the immigration issue. And he didn't deal with the condo association because people were bitching and moaning that, listen, it's all going to hell. We came out and called this the 2025 Florida Condo Association financial cliff because all of this stuff was being expected. And our call was based on talking to people like you who could just anticipate everything. So none of this is a surprise. It's just a slow-moving train wreck.
Absolutely correct. Daniel Perez authored before he was the Speaker of the House, but he already had the votes to become the Speaker. That's how it works here.
Yep.
When you're a freshman legislator, you come in on an odd year and you can convince the rest of the representatives of your class to give you the majority of your ballots, your commitment. When you're up there, you're just going to get the speakership. That's not the way it is in your last 2 years. So he was already the speaker designate. And he's in Westchester. He's in a district that really doesn't have a lot of condos. So it makes sense for
Horizontal.
him.
Yep. Everybody's living horizontal. They're living in a house.
It's single-family home communities for the most part. There may be some condos sprinkled in here and there. That was Pepe Diaz's old district. I know it very well. I live right here next to Miami Children's Hospital, so I'm very close to the district. And it was a perfect candidate for him to write that law because why? He's going to get the least resistance in district. Remember, in all politics is local. He could get reelected easily, whereas a representative that has a lot of condos in there, like Porras or something, he can't do that because he will get affected. He will get kicked out and not win his next election. So he's the author of this. He's now the Speaker of the House. There's been a contention between the legislature and the governor for the last 3 years that I can notice, I see. But again, if they really wanted to do something about it, I don't want to crap on the legislature too much. Okay, but if my only point, because I do get grief, I get phone calls from lobbyists, I get phone calls from legislators themselves that are, hey, you went too hard on this issue. Listen, if you really want to blame the owners, because that's what you've done right now. In the last 3 years, the state of Florida has crapped all over condo owners, condo board members specifically, and managers for no reason. Because if we share guilt in this 50-year deferred maintenance debacle, so does the state of Florida for not using the $11 million for education and enforcement. Because I remember at the tail end of the last recession, Peter, that you are very familiar with, remember Condo Vulture?
I had a good time.
Yeah, and it was, that was a big moment for both of us because we got to shine during that time and show our real skills, and we called it. And I remember at that time that there was this whole scam called the blanket receivership. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was a company called Association Financial something or whatever. And then there was some other companies that would come in and they would ask you to just, hey, put the association into receivership voluntarily and ask us to be assigned a receiver. And it was a management company. And then they would put in all these sub-vendors. What they would do is take over the units that were empty, that were about to go to bank foreclosure. They had not paid on over 90 days. They would literally take over the unit, rent it out. And supposedly the association was supposed to benefit from those funds. That never happened. They kept the money.